Hello friends, welcome to the Point. In this session, we are discussing about climate changes. In the previous session, we have discussed about greenhouse effect, its gases, and what are the causes of greenhouse effect. Greenhouse gas, it causes global warming, and that warming of the earth, it causes climate change. The causes responsible for climate change can be natural or man-made. Some of the natural factors that are responsible for climate change are continental drift, volcanoes, earth tilt, ocean currents, etc. And some of the man-made causes of climate change are deforestation, burning of fossil fuels, greenhouse effect, etc. Burning of fossil fuels and fires. The byproducts of burning wood, coal and fossil fuels or poisonous gases like carbon monoxide, methane, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, etc. The quality and concentration of these pollutants, they depend on the type of fuel being used. For example, smoke out of factory chimneys has a large number of sulfur dioxide gas, and this gas, it may mix with the air with small particles of metals near the factories and they get oxidized into sulfur trioxide. The sulfur trioxide and sulfur dioxide, they are the harmful gases. They react with water to form sulfuric acid and sulfurous acid, and this acid comes down on the earth in the form of acid rain or acid precipitation. Deforestation. Plants maintain balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the nature. Plants inhale carbon dioxide for the purpose of photosynthesis and give out oxygen. Animals during respiration, they inhale oxygen and liberate carbon dioxide, which is used by the plants. Cutting down of plants and trees, it has disturbed the balance of carbon dioxide and oxygen in nature. And this has caused increase in carbon dioxide level and decrease in the oxygen level in the atmosphere. As the population is increasing faster, and this is also one of the reason for deforestation, and because of the forest land, they have been converted for agriculture purpose to meet the growing demands of the population. Greenhouse effect. Excess accumulation of some gases like carbon dioxide, methane, chlorofluorocarbons, ozone and water vapor, these are responsible for increasing heat on the earth, and these gases are known as greenhouse gases. These gases, they trap the earth's heat and cause global warming. El Nino or counter current. A warm ocean current is known as El Nino current. It flows from north to south between 3 degrees south and 36 degrees south latitudes along the Peruvian coast. The temperature does not fall and the rainfall increases along the Peruvian coast due to this El Nino current. El Nino, it is a weather phenomena. It brings heavy rainfall which results in lush green or dry coastal land of Peru. The cold water mass near the Peruvian coast, it becomes warm due to strong El Nino, and it causes heavy rainfall in the first half of the year, that is from Jan to March, and destruction of marine life, mainly death of fishes due to disappearance of the plankton. At the event of strong El Nino, the tropical Eastern Pacific receives 4 to 6 times more rainfall than the normal amount, but the dry condition in the tropical Western Pacific, it results in drought in Indonesia, Bangladesh, India, etc. El Nino affects monsoon in the Indian Ocean. When El Nino is extended to southern end of South America, warm water, it is pushed eastward to join the South Atlantic westerly drift, which brings warm water into southern Indian Ocean during the south winters. Impacts of climate change. In 1995, a group of 2000 leading scientists, they got together under IPCC, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and they concluded that global warming, it is a threat to the survival of mankind, and they predicted that in the 21st century the Earth's average temperature could rise by 1.4 to 5.8 degrees Celsius. Whether due to global warming, the northern regions of the northern hemisphere, they get heated up more than other areas of the planet. In temperate mountains, snow lines will melt earlier. Winter and nighttime temperatures, they tend to rise more than summer and daytime only once. Heat waves and drought. The burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, etc., it increases carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And as the carbon dioxide level rises in the atmosphere, this increases the heat, giving rise to heat waves. Because of excessive heat, water will evaporate quickly. Soil is affected with erosion and there is a devoid of vegetative cover, and they will not retain moisture for long, and hence there would be drought. Floods. The rise in temperature, it lead to melting of glaciers, and which will form natural lake between the mounds of debris and rocks that are left behind the sliding glaciers, and this will result in imbalance in the outflow of water. That means the glacial lakes will be fed with water from the melting ice at the rate faster than the rate at which they can be drained, and this makes the glacier lakes flood more frequently. Deltas will be threatened by floods, erosion and salt intrusion. There will be a loss of coastal mangroves, and that has impact on fisheries. The major delta areas are Ganga, Brahmaputra and the Indus rivers, and it has a large population and it will be affected by the floods. Melting of the ice caps. In the polar region, there is a mechanism, it is known as ice albedo feedback mechanism. In this mechanism, white sea ice, it keeps the polar region cool by reflecting the sunlight. If this ice melts, it will expose the dark sea water and it absorbs more sunlight and causes further melting. And if this happens, it would be disastrous. The massive rush water would drown almost 1/3 of Bangladesh and it wipes Maldives off the world map. That means Maldives will be completely submerged under the sea. Rise in the sea level. The heating of oceans, melting of glaciers and the polar ice sheets, it rises the average sea level by about half a meter. Rise in the sea level, it causes loss of land due to erosion, flooding and saltwater intrusion. It also affects coastal agriculture, tourism, freshwater resource, fisheries, etc. Rising sea level, it threatens the survival of many low-lying nations like Maldives and Marshall Islands. Effect on agriculture. Climate change will affect agriculture yield directly. This is because of change in temperature and rainfall. And climate change indirectly affects the soil quality, pest and disease. Increase in temperature impacts the agriculture production. Higher temperature reduces the total duration of the crop cycle, which induces early flowering and thus shortening the grain fill period. The shorter the crop cycle, the lower the yield per unit area. Pest infection. As the temperature rises, condition will become more favorable for the pests like grasshoppers to complete a number of reproduction cycle, and it increases their population. In the higher latitudes, Agriculture will benefit the rise in temperature as the winter season will be shorter and the growing seasons will be longer. And this will also mean that pests will move towards the higher latitude as there is a rise in temperature. And these are some of the common pests of the crops. Green rice leaf hopper. It is a major pest of rice. Maize weevil. It attacks the stored grains. Aphids. It attacks legumes, cucurbits and tomato family. Mites. This attacks cucurbits, tomato family, sweet potato and citrus family. Effect on ecosystem and biodiversity. Increased dry spells. They could place dry and more deciduous forest at increased risk from the forest fires. The ecosystem that are likely to be affected by this change are one in the higher latitudes and the tundra forest. Polar regions will feel the impact of warming more than others. Species that live in higher alpine zones, they are forced to move higher up to find a suitable habitat, and thus it reduces the area where they live. If the rate of climate change continues to accelerate, then there would be an extinction of some mountain plants and animals. Marine life. Corals are known as tropical forests of the oceans, and they sustain diverse life forms. As ocean in the tropics become warmer, the damage of the coral reef increases. The corals are very sensitive to change in water temperature and which causes bleaching. Large stretches of the Great Barrier Reef in Australia have damaged by bleaching. Zooplanktons. These are the small organisms that float on water surface, and they are also declining in numbers, and thereby the number of fish and seabirds that feed on this organism is also declining. Shrinking sea ice in the Arctic, it reduces ice algae, which is crucial to the entire Arctic food chain, from fish to seals. Rising temperature in the Arctic, it endangers polar bears, seals and fish. Controlling climatic change. Undue changes in the climate, they are controlled by taking some measures. Planting trees and getting involved in projects like social forestry and agricultural forestry. Reducing the consumption of fossil fuels and using more non-conventional renewable sources of energy like wind, solar, nuclear and biogas energies. Attempting the reduction of greenhouse gases through the international cooperation. Adapting and accepting the changing climate. To deal with climate change problems by reducing the greenhouse emissions, a global framework convention on climate change, it was signed under the UN in 1992. And this convention, it recognized the problem of global warming, which was caused by industrialized countries, and they should take the first step to limit emissions. The Qter Protocol. This was adopted under FCC in 1997, and it laid down a timetable for the industrialized countries to reduce their GHG emissions. According to Qter Protocol, industrialized countries, they have to decrease their emissions at least 5.2% when compared to 1990 emission levels. The Qter Protocol came into force on Feb 16, 2005. That's all for the session. Thank you.